Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Woodhounds. We are a podcast about firewood, trees, and wood, and firewood, and trees, and the timber industry, and firewood.
And firewood. All about firewood.
In that order. So my name is Joe, and I am sitting across the table here at Woodhound Studio from my good friend Dan. Dan, tell everyone hello.
Hey, hello everyone, and welcome back again to another episode of the Woodhounds here on your favorite podcast channel or network or platform, whatever it is.
Yeah, Dan, did you happen to know that we are the highest rated firewood podcast in the world?
I did. We are number one firewood podcast in the world. It's
such a short time too.
I know. 3 episodes in.
It didn't take long at all.
No, it's amazing. And one other, as long as we're on the fun facts portion of the podcast, did you know that Back 40 Firewood and Ohio Woodburner have the same number of characters in them?
I did. I did
crazy.
Not.
Yes, It's crazy how that worked out.
I think that's shows some great insight with you too, that you took that time to figure that out.
I have a lot of time. But for those of you who don't know, both Joe and I, we have a YouTube channel. Joe, Ohio Woodburner, and I have the Back 40 Firewood channel, and so that's where that reference of Back 40 Firewood and Ohio Woodburner came from.
Yeah, my channel, we're coming up on our second anniversary in mid-March, so we're coming up close.
Ooh, celebration time.
Yeah, my channel started by accident, and I've told this story where my daughter was sent home from college because of the pandemic, and she was bored, and I had just bought a new Yappa firewood processor. It's made in Finland, and we were just posting some videos, and it got a lot of traction. And the next thing I know, I mean, it was a whirlwind. We're a big YouTube firewood channel.
Yeah, it's crazy how all the things that came out of the pandemic, when you look back, I think that's part of the reason for the growth of my channel. Is just started out, 2 years, well, almost 3 years ago now. And for whatever reason, I'm still trying to figure out and analyze the data, why it took off the way it did, but it did. So here we are. Now we're going from YouTube and having this podcast.
Yeah, I think the podcast, I'm just excited about podcasting. I'm a late comer in the industry as a consumer. I just started listening to podcasts about 6 months ago, and I got my go-tos, but I just enjoy it. I just search for topics and download them to my phone, and then I can listen to them in the car, and I'm not burning up data. It's nice. I enjoy it. And that's when Dan and I were talking. I had done some, during all my searches, I was looking for, any discussion about firewood, and I didn't see any. There was none. There was some episodes about trees, and there was one about Dutch elm disease. I can't remember the person that did that podcast, but it was interesting. But for the most part, there was nothing about firewood. So Dan and I decided to give it a go.
Yeah, and here we are. we're on our way. Like you said, we've launched from week 1 to week 3. We are now the number 1 firewood podcast in the universe.
Yes, we'll keep hammering away at that too.
Yes.
Yeah. So I was outside this morning doing my morning task at my wood yard, and one of the things that I do is I sort our wood by species. I stack the ash over here. I stack the maple over there. I stack the oak way down there. And it just got me thinking about all of the different species of firewood that's out there in the world. And I was just wondering, Dan, what is your favorite species of firewood?
Well, it actually depends, because for me, both as a consumer. I burn firewood in an outdoor wood boiler, but I also have a side hobby that I sell firewood from a roadside stand and in my driveway, and I make bundles and sell them. So, from a burning perspective, I like oak. From a selling point of view, I hate oak. So, as if I'm selling, it's anything but oak, and I'm the same way. I separate out just the oak, and then everything else I mix together. So,
Why do you separate oak from all the others?
just because I think it's not a very good recreational firewood, and I mostly cater to people spring, summer, and fall who are camping, who are having a fire in their backyard, who they want to grab a bundle or two and go. And I find that oak just is not a good recreational firewood.
Because
It's
it's too green, takes too
it,
long to dry.
it takes too long to season. It's heavy.
Yeah.
I don't think it burns very well if you're looking for flames and ambiance. I think it's great for heating. It's a great firewood for heating, but I think if you want to sit around a fire and enjoy the evening in your backyard, I think anything but oak.
Do you like working with oak?
I like working with it because it does tend to split easier.
Hmm.
I do actually like the aroma it gives off. Some people don't. Some people think it smells very bad, but I don't mind it as far as splitting. It's just that you split it, and then I mean I like to give my oak at least 2 years to season
Yeah.
before I burn it, and that's one of I think the biggest downfall to oak because
I had,
you can split some maple in 6 months. You can be burning it.
I had always thought oak splits easy. And I get that a lot from people. When they watch a log splitter, they're always like, wow, that's easy. Firewood you're splitting. How would it do splitting oak?
Yeah,
And I've always thought, I don't know what the heck they're talking about. I think oak splits easy. It has like this texture to it, though. Have you ever noticed? It's almost like, I mean, it splits easy, it splits straight, but there's like this fibrous, almost like cloth,
yes,
the way it pulls apart.
and
It doesn't make that hard crack, that hard split like ash or maple does.
no, and it's very
Hmm.
dense wood.
Yeah, I think it's interesting about your positive comments about oak because I am probably in the biggest minority in the entire firewood and woodhound universe, but I despise oak. I hate everything about it. I just can't. I appreciate the trees. I think they're gorgeous. I appreciate the wood, for woodworking and trim. But for firewood, oh
Yeah.
yeah, I can't stand it. When at our wood yard, we have tree length logs that come in, to our processor. So we have semi truckloads that come in, and now I've picked up a couple restaurants that want oak, so I still got to deal with it. But man, I always told those loggers, don't ever bring me oak.
Yeah.
Yeah, everything. I think so. When I think back on my life and what could have caused me to have this aversion to one of the greatest trees of all time, and you had mentioned that you like it, the smell, and I think that's where it starts with me. I think that oak smells just awful.
Well,
I think it smells. It reminds me of when I was in elementary school and some kid would throw up in the hallway and the janitor would come down with his dark blue pants and shirt on and his keys jingling on his hip, and he would clean it up and he would spray that aerosol on it.
oh
That's what
yeah.
that's what oak smells to me.
Well, I think one of the things, and this gets probably to the point of why certain people, prefer certain species, is I think the location where you are also plays a factor because I think some of the oak does have a very pungent odor and does not smell good at all. But like up here, we have a lot of red oak, and then we have a black oak, and the
Hmm.
black oak does have a bad smell to it.
Yeah,
And
I can't tell the difference of any of them. So I I can see it, and there. I mean, it's just beautiful wood. The white oak, the red oak, and the majority that we have here in Ohio is the pin oak. And people ask, some of the smokers, they'll ask for just white oak, but I do separate by species, but I don't separate by in,
subspecies.
subspecies. All the oak, goes to the one area we call it
Yep.
Oakland, because it's got to sit there for 2 years. It takes that long to dry, even when it's split small. But I can't tell the difference between the three, the major species
Yeah.
that I see down here. But I do, at least in this area, it seems people split their oak small, and for it to season out, I had a stick that was 18 months old that I had split into firewood. I split it open and checked it with a moisture meter, and it was still reading 40%.
Yep.
Jeez. And
Yep.
when you sell firewood, you get tired of looking at this wood sitting there after a while.
Yeah.
And, you can sell it for more. It's worth more, but in my opinion, it ain't worth that much more. I can't get that much more to justify having that log, that the stack of firewood sitting there for so long.
Right. Yeah, and
Hmm.
that's the other thing that always confused me with, up here we have all the gas stations and convenience stores that sell bundles. They sell oak. And
Oh,
so, people, and for whatever reason, people get this idea of like oak is the premium, so it should, cost more. The price of it should be higher. It should be
hmm.
a better firewood. But I just think, like I said, I think it's, you know,
Yeah,
not
well,
very good.
that's simply just because it hasn't sit long enough. I had a customer that called and wanted delivery. He was an older gentleman. He's real cranky, but he was like a lovable kind of a cranky guy. And he had just bought wood off of some guy, and he said, "This is flame retardant firewood." He says, "I put this on my fire and it goes out." So I took him my best stuff, and he showed me what the guy delivered, and it was green, just cut down yesterday oak, and it was big chunks, and he was using it to ring his fire pit because
Yep.
it was not going to catch on fire. It was just that heavy, that wet, and that green. It wasn't going to burn.
No.
And yeah, I think too, if you're selling bundles, especially if your name is on the tag,
Yeah.
I would not put oak in there unless
No.
darn well it's 2 years old. And I have 2-year-old oak, and I just don't like it. And what I've noticed is when oak sits for a long time and it seasons, like the bark will start to peel off. It comes off in one big sheet. It invites the red ants. There's something about oak,
Oh, yes.
and they climb underneath that bark, and you don't see that with other firewoods except for oak.
Yep.
And then if you leave that oak sitting too long, it's kind of an acidic wood. You get mushrooms growing on it, and
Yep. And another interesting thing with oak, when you do allow plenty of time for it to season, if it's in the sun, you'll end up with like some ends that are grayed out and they look like bleached, and then when
uh-huh.
you take the top pieces off, the ends will all be gray. And I've actually had people say that they thought that wood was like worse than the other stuff because of the gray bleached
Yeah.
color. It's like, this looks old and rotten. I don't want that gray stuff. I want the nice, clean looking red.
Yeah, when actually that's a good sign.
Right. It's
Hmm. But I have a couple restaurants that want oak. And okay, so I have learned there's different types of smokers out there. And the smokers that they have, the heat, it's like a gas fired smoke or a
Yep.
gas fired smoker. And there's this little trap door that you put the wood in. So it doesn't matter to them if the oak is seasoned, because
Ah,
the wood is not supplying the wood's not supplying the heat.
right.
So yeah, that was the customer, the restaurant called and asked if I could service them. And I said, sure. And they said they prefer oak. And I was like, well, maybe I won't be able to, And then they started saying, well, we like it split big. And I was like, okay. And we don't care about the moisture content. And I was like, well, I'm your
Oh,
guy. I'm your guy.
yeah. There you go.
Yeah,
I
we can take
imagine. I imagine that having the more moisture in the wood actually probably makes more smoke and a better smoke.
Yeah, so that I guess is a debate in the barbecue world. And
Oh,
I've heard passionate opinions on both sides of it, where some say, a green stick of firewood gives off an acidic, uh, unpleasant kind of a smoky taste.
oh, okay.
And the others say that, but they swear by, the extra smoke that comes off of a green stick. So I don't know. I think it comes down to taste. Everyone's
Yeah,
got their own opinions on that. But my job, I give the customer what they want.
that's the way. That's the best way I found to sell firewood. You give, and
Yeah.
that's like I said, as far as my little hobby operation that I have, when people buy a bundle of firewood from me, I am with the expectation that they want to burn it that night. So, it
Yeah.
has to be ready to go. It has to be seasoned, ready to burn. And I just find that oak is not a good firewood for that. Plus, like I said, I think I might do a video on this. Is just make a fire with just oak. There's no good flame.
Yeah. Hmm.
I've even had people say that they don't prefer oak because it burns too long, and they want to end their night at the fire pit and go in the house.
Uh-huh. Yeah, well, there's no question about BTUs. It's up there.
Yep,
It's one of the best. I just see it, from the eyes of a producer. And on top of everything else, it's heavy. It's harder to work with for me because I'm getting older, and it's just heavier to lift. At least the bark is nice and smooth. It doesn't tear your gloves up when you
that's
work with
true.
it. I think it splits easy. But it's for me when you're splitting, a freshly cut oak. Oh, that smell just drives me crazy.
So, as
Oh,
a firewood producer like you are, what then is your favorite species of wood?
yeah. Well, okay. So this is where I think I might be an outlier here. I probably people are thinking, what the heck? This guy doesn't like oak and he's into firewood. Um, the species that I find the easiest to work with, that I can turn around and make quick buck is the the maligned silver maple.
Oh yes,
I
yes,
yeah, I think it's a great firewood, and it gets a bad rap because it's kind of lighter in weight and lower in BTU. It kind of burns up fast. But keep in mind, my customers, I go after and market to customers that aren't really looking at firewood for heat. They're looking at it
yes,
just for ambiance.
yep,
So in that way, species really is irrelevant. But for me to be able to sell a person a dry stick of firewood, because people too, like the customers I go after, they may not be the most experienced with lighting fires and keeping them going. And it's just nice to, get them a nice split of a species that's, it's dry, and it lights easy and it burns nice, and that's silver maple,
and
and
it looks nice.
oh, it looks gorgeous. It is a
Yes,
beautiful wood when it is all cut. Like, I have a machine that cuts it at, 16 inches, and then everything's split the same. It's just beautiful firewood. The bark, the colors, when it seasons, it does get that gray look. I just think it's gorgeous. It's really, really, and it smells great too. I have also found it to be a very versatile firewood for my restaurants. It's got a neutral kind of a smell to it, and it's not like something strong like hickory, something unique like that.
mm, yeah,
And yeah, it's just yeah. So I'm probably going to be the only person on the planet that is going to say silver maple is their favorite firewood, but it's me. So silver maple too is it's known by different things in different parts of the country. Some people call it soft maple,
yep,
and there's hard maple, which I understand is probably your sugar maple, and I don't know if the red maple is considered soft or hard, but silver maple, it's a tree that if you know the maples, with the helicopters,
Yep.
and they're growing out of your gutters and they're growing in your mulch bed. That's the silver maple. They grow fast. They live probably about 40 years. If they get too big, the trunk starts to get rotted out on them and they'll fall onto your house. So they get harvested a lot, and I just see a lot of them. The ones that grow out in the open fields, in a big stand of trees, they grow really tall, really straight, and man, you can just make some good firewood with
Yep.
them. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. The silver maple is my second favorite firewood.
Is it?
Yes.
That's good to know. Now, my favorite, I have another favorite, and it's cherry. And that's simply because of the smell. The smell of splitting cherry firewood is intoxicating.
Yes.
Oh,
I would
it
agree.
is the greatest smell on earth. There is nothing like it. We sort by species too. When I'll have it all stacked up, gosh, you just walk down near it and it just fills your nose up with that gorgeous smell. What a great firewood. And it's a beautiful wood too. If you're in
Yeah.
the woodworking, that dark red, it is just a great, great firewood.
So you go and just sit next to the stack and take deep breaths. And,
Yeah. I should probably,
oh,
I'll stack it around my, my relaxation area just so I can smell it. But if anyone though were to ask me, usually like customers and stuff, about firewood, the first word usually that comes out of my mouth is ash. Ash
yep.
is just a reliable, great firewood. It splits easy, it is hard, and it burns with that big flame. And ironically, very little ash. And people always talk about that it's a drier wood. I don't know if it is. I still think we got some biology going on here. It still has to have water for it to live.
Yep.
But it's a great firewood. That's what
Yeah.
they make did you know that's what they make the baseball bats out of?
Oh, I did not know that.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Wow.
They've been switching to maple, and the maple bats break a lot easier than the
I can see
ash.
that. Yep.
The problem with the ash is they're all dying.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's what sometimes makes me wonder if that's why it's such a popular firewood. In some areas, that's the tree that they have the most. It's most common. They have a lot of it that needs to be removed, and
Mm-hmm.
it does make a great firewood.
Yeah, but they're all dying.
Yeah.
I would bet there is not a single living ash tree in the state of Ohio right now. It
Really?
is deader than it's deader than the elm. I still see healthy elms out and about, but I have never seen a live ash tree. When I drive down the road in the summertime, all these dead trees that you see, out in the fields and stuff, they're all ash trees. They're all dead. They were all killed by that emerald ash borer.
Yeah. See, growing up on the farm, we never had an ash tree anywhere.
Oh, wow. I had heard it was the most popular tree in Ohio up until 10 years ago when this ash borer started invading.
Wow. And now most of the ash trees are all ashes.
Yeah. They are all out there. They're standing dead. They can still be harvested too. They kind of keep their constitution, when they're up like that.
Yeah.
And they can still be harvested and put to something useful. If not firewood, you can still make, I don't know what they make out of ash, pallets and
something
and boxes. So I'd mentioned elm. Dan, do you have any experience dealing with elm?
A lot of experience dealing with elm.
There's a belief that Dutch elm disease invented the hydraulic splitter industry.
I can believe that. But I will tell you that growing up, elm was one of my favorite firewoods to take camping.
Why is that? Because of how stringy it was?
Because of the smaller limb wood loses its bark really fast and is real clean. So you don't have any bark falling off on your truck or in your, totes, or it was just a nice, clean firewood.
I had thought you were going to say because it's, it's real stringy and you can pull those strings off and make a little pile, to get your fire started.
Oh no, it was
Mm-hmm.
the pieces I took. I didn't even try to split. They were just round because it is not a fun wood to split.
Yeah, I remember as a kid before I understood, that there's, each tree has its own personality. I remember splitting elm with a wedge and a sledgehammer, and it, wouldn't split.
Oh
That the
my.
wedge, it would just swallow the wedge. And I just, I had no idea what the heck was going on. And here it was an elm tree.
Get out another wedge. Get another wedge and another one and another one.
With my furnace, if the log, if it's elm, we if it would fit through the door, I wouldn't even bother trying to split it.
Yep.
Because there's no point in it. I had read up about the elm tree. It was used in the old days for wagon wheel hubs because it just won't split. It was a tough wood like that. It's also used in butcher blocks.
Interesting.
And horse stables. It's just a tough, stringy wood that just doesn't split.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, indeed.
So have you ever worked with hickory?
A little bit. We shag bark hickory down on the farm. We have quite a few stands of hickory trees, but not. We'd only would harvest anything that would like windfalls or anything that was dead. So I never, not a lot of it.
Love the smell of it. It is hard, man.
That's another hard one to split.
Yeah, that's what you make your axe handles out of. And it is hard, but man, it smells great. There's nothing out there that smells like hickory. It's tough splitting too. It's kind of stringy.
And it's a sin, as far as I've heard, to use it for firewood just for the heat and the BTU value. Like if you have hickory, you better be using it for cooking or smoking.
I don't deal with it a lot. Like I get my logs that come in from the log trucks, and there are occasionally some hickory on it. But at least for me, I probably have right now about a quarter quart of hickory in my woodlot. That's it. Yeah. I have 0 apple. Have you ever worked with any apple?
I have not.
That is a very tough tree. Won't split. But it smells too. It smells like apple cider mash. When you split them open, it does. It smells like apple.
Huh.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I work with the most, my most popular species of tree that I work with is free. So whatever I get brought to me for free is what I usually end up working with. And, but ironically, it is mostly a lot of silver maple, because to your points about how they get to a certain size and a certain age and they start dying, they need to be removed. And I get a lot of it. And I like it.
What about so there are some other species out there that have excellent reputations, like locust. Have you ever worked with locust? It is a beautiful color when you cut it open.
Yes, I did for the first time this year. I had some locusts, some black locusts. And that's mostly for heating though. That's the popular heating wood.
Right. In our area, the Amish, that is like their go-to tree. If they can't make fence posts out of it, I guess there's an oil in the wood that when they're buried in the ground for a fence post, they don't rot.
Yep.
So if they're not doing that, they think it's the greatest of all firewoods. You'll never buy locust off of a Amish producer because they'll keep it for themselves.
Not for sale.
Yeah. And then there's other species out there like sycamore, that sycamore is an interesting wood. It feels super heavy when you cut it and split it. But when it dries out, if you come back to it like 6 months later, it feels like balsa wood. It's like it's literally nothing there. It just feels like a piece of paper when you pick it up.
Wow. Yeah, I've never had any of that.
And I never see birch down here. Do you ever see that up where you live?
Every now and then. Growing up on the farm, we had some birch, but I've only a few times had a subspecies, a river birch, delivered here and dropped off. But never the white birch.
The paper birch.
The paper birch, yeah.
That the that the bark can be used for tinder. I guess it
Yep.
lights on fire even if it's wet. It's like
Yeah.
got a oil substance in it.
So hopefully that answered your question. I know we got, a lot of different species talked about there and a good conversation on them. But, again, just back to the oak. I know everyone loves it, but it sounds like you and I are kind of in agreement there. We don't have so much love for the oak.
Yeah. I think, at the end of the day, all wood burns. Out west, there's a lot of houses that are being heated with softwood, with pine and cedar. And it probably doesn't really matter what the species is if you have enough of it.
Right.
Yeah.
That's right.
Okay.
Whatever's in.
Yeah. If you're looking for flavor and taste for food, that's a different story. But, I think that's one of the fun things is that you're at least able to tell the difference. It's almost like drinking wine. If you talk with people that drink wine,
yeah,
they have they can just taste all these different flavors in it and stuff. And I don't know, I'm like from Ohio, so whatever. But when it comes to firewood, I can talk, and tell you all the different nuances of wood and the way it splits and smells and seasons and burns. And it's one of the fun things about what we do.
And I think that's an interesting point to anyone out there listening, maybe for the first time, or maybe just listening out of a curiosity, like, firewood is just more than just a piece of wood that burns. There's so many levels, there's so many layers. Your point about geography, where you live, depends on what you might burn or what you have. I mean, it's amazing.
Mm-hmm. We can become wood snobs, just like a person is with their wine. Well, you don't drink a Pinot.
No, heaven! What
you
are
don't
you
drink
talking
that
about?
with fish? What are you talking about?
No, what would you do that for? A Pinot Noir or whatever it is.
You don't drink a Chardonnay with a steak.
What are you doing?
You don't burn silver maple on a Tuesday night.
No, what? But all right, so once again, Joe, great seeing you here at the Woodhound studio.
This was a lot of fun.
Yeah, another enjoyable little conversation. Hopefully those listening enjoyed it as much as we did, having it with ourselves. Yeah, so thanks again.
Yeah, I thought this was a lot of fun, and I just kind of enjoy the discussion. It's nice hanging out with you here once a week and talking about firewood.
Yes, the many, many different aspects of firewood. It's crazy how one little stick of firewood can bring people together with so many different topics and conversations.
We could bring peace to this world with firewood, Dan, if given the chance. I want to thank everyone for tuning in and listening to the Woodhounds podcast. I hope you found it entertaining, and I hope to see you back here next week.
Yes, enjoy your week, Woodhounds, and have
a great day.